Approve as presented. I wasn't there, so I best not, you weren't there either. That'd be a better second.
I didn't see anything in it when I read over it, so
That's good.
we'll make a motion that we approve them.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right. Aye.
East Range Joint Power Board funds, account balances are on page 4 and 5.
Again, that's as of, today, so I know there were 2 checks in the mail today for loan.
Part of it comes from workman's comp. From Minnesota City.
No, so we have, SFM is our workers' comp provider for the joint powers anyway, so we don't believe we get a refund.
Okay. I think we get one from the township for
Okay,
the workman's comp if you.
you overpaid your premium.
Yeah, or
They audit you.
you didn't have so many
Very rare to
incidents
get a
or
refund.
whatever.
I know.
get something back.
That's true, I do have an audit due for SFM next month, so maybe we would get, something back if we overpaid.
Okay,
Plan holiday parties around that. That sounds good.
I'll make the motion then that we approve the bills and payroll.
I'll support that.
Okay, yes, turn updates and presentation. Yes, anybody in the hall? Speak up.
Miriam, you wanna start us off?
If I can unmute myself like a beginner. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Let's see. Hello, range updates. We are switching up our little new Iron Ranger gatherings a little bit to turn them into kind of try it out events, just playing with this a little bit. And so this kind of January, February is yoga. And so actually, thank you very much, Sherry, for sending me a couple of recommendations. And Jenna Dickinson will be doing yoga at the Hoyt Lakes Library on February 6th. So Sean, I'll send you my flyer. I just kind of got that finalized. If you wouldn't mind sharing that out. So free, try it out, 30 minutes. And I'm really changing kind of also the language because I've gotten a lot of over the holidays, a lot of folks saying, oh, I grew up here and now I moved back and I feel like a new person. Crystal, you can relate to that, I know. And so I'm going to be changing some language around the stuff we do. So people who are returning, they're just not identifying with this newcomer kind of idea. So we're going to add that. And also working on a concept around how we connect, those community members who want to be welcoming to newcomers. So look for more there. And then try to think what else. Signed up for Earth Fest, everybody. So if you're going to be there, please come and stop by our table for Hello Range. And I think that's kind of it. Website's still in process. Everyone who's done a website knows you think it'll be done much earlier than it's ever done. So that isn't ready yet. I think we're in the final stages, but I think I say this every month. So here we go. That's about it from the Hello Range side.
Crystal?
Yeah, hi, Crystal with United Way. Miriam, you are so good at being inclusive and mindful, and my little heart is just so excited for everyone. They're going to be coming in troves, I think. And so really exciting on Thursday. We're hosting our Imagination Library event at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. It's a really great time for women to come together and support early literacy. For those in the room not familiar with, our United Way partners with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and we help get books in the hands of kiddos from birth to age 5. It's a monthly subscription, no cost, and it's a really beautiful way to build up a library across our service territory. So if you know anyone that has a kiddo or one under age 5 and below, send them to our website. They can enroll. And then we have a super busy March. Our fund distribution is occurring on March 4th, also at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So we received 34 applications from nonprofits in the region, asking almost $1 million worth of grants. Unfortunately, as with like CDBG funding, the ask just outweigh what we have to give. And we have 80 panelists that are going to be a part of this day. So donors get to have a say in where their dollars go. So that's really exciting. And then we have a Beanbags for the Brave event on March 20th. It's really kind of incredible. We were just asked to speak at the Behavioral Health Summit regarding the work that we've done with our veterans community, and one of those is the annual retreat, which for the first time ever was sold out, and I guess it was a phenomenal event. So many thanks to the veterans and their families, not only for what they do, but for coming together. Some of the anecdotal conversations that came out of that are really beautiful, and so if you want to support that cause and you either want to be a competitive beanbag thrower or social, you can sign up on our website. And then just plugging, I know calendars fill up fast, but anyone in the East Range community that has an interest to be a volunteer at one of our meetup and chow down sites, that's a lunch program that United Way puts on with the help of volunteers and community sites from June through August to help those kiddos get lunches. And I know that our East Range sites are some of the most well attended. So more information will be coming about that.
Thank you.
Any questions for anybody?
How's that summer, was it, meetup and, chow down? How does that pair with what the schools do? Don't they continue to provide, food over the summer now?
I don't.
That was
They
just
delivered
COVID, huh? Okay.
food, 'cause they had some funding, but during the year, we do the Backpack Buddy program through
Yeah.
United Way that sends home food over the weekend, but we don't do a summer. I mean, summer childcare has a program, you know, where they get food during the day, but
Yeah, so this fills that gap, okay.
Yeah, so there's a distinct shortage there over the summer months
Yeah.
for the kids that really need it.
Okay.
And Sherry had said, you know, the buddy backpacks, given the demand and the need, our buddy backpacks do extend through the summer. So kiddos that attend on Thursdays get a weekend meal kit that they get to take home to just help bridge those gaps. We know that in our area, it is such a high need, unfortunately, that food insecurity together with inflation and all of the things. And this is a program that would have really benefited my family when I was younger. When school rolled around, my parents were excited because we qualified for free and reduced lunch. And unfortunately, when summer came around, we just didn't have that option. So it's really beautiful. This program cannot be done without volunteers. It's typically, if you're interested in reserving some time, it's about an hour to an hour and a half commitment. And we ask that, like, if you want to participate, take all the Mondays in June. So Monday, noon to 1, you pick up and hand out the lunches and do a little reporting. And then And then you get to interact with some really great kids and, you know, give back to the community. So more information will be forthcoming.
Anybody else?
Yeah, here in the room, we've got a number of visitors if they wanna introduce themselves. I think that's everybody online.
Bert, are you here as a spectator or what?
I don't have to be.
I'm here from Northern State Bank. I'm an interested citizen.
Okay. Welcome. Nice to see a crowd at the meeting. Other than that, next will be our Northland. report.
North Side report, sure. So the marketing committee, I met with, Steve, Ruckla, formerly with Giants Ridge, now with, Entrepreneur Funds. He's gonna continue to be a member on the East Range Marketing Committee. And we talked about some different, design options for trying to get the unified marketing material. Looking at, you know, you can get expensive very quickly on something like that. And so we're kind of talking about different options. I forget his last name, but Aaron, the guy who owns the company that did Aiken's video and marketing campaign, sent us some information, and obviously he's on the higher end. We also ideally at some point would also have a video kind of highlighting the range, similar to the Aiken one, only, you know, highlighting our amenities. And frankly, we've got a lot more to highlight. And Steve has, between him and Discover the Range, there's a lot of the clips there, so really we need somebody to put them together. And then there's the what do you do with it? And that was something Aaron was quick to point out is, you know, he can do a really nice video for $20,000, but the marketing and the campaign and everything else that goes with it is more than that. But we do have the marketing committee, and so we don't necessarily need to rely on him for all of that, but we're kind of trying to figure out what's the medium before we hit you up for $20,000, right? Because we want to be mindful of that. And part that's also, I would say, part of the reason why we're starting with the not mailer piece, but like brochure piece for the unified marketing is because it's obviously a lot cheaper than video in terms of putting together. But Steve also gave me a reference for somebody he has worked with before. Her name is Emma. I haven't had a chance to, you know, review previous materials or anything that she's done yet, but is a potential option for somebody who's local and frankly won't cost as much as Aaron. But we'll also discuss later today what our additional options might be for local design and kind of figuring that out. But
I can give you another name too, if you want, Carl. Justin Patchen. He does a lot of drone flyover videos and like Water Carnival and other events too. He's a local guy.
so he'd be a good source for video and.
If, you know, I don't, he makes little ones that he posts online and on Facebook. I don't know if he'd be interested in a, you know, full scale stuff, but he may be, and he does really great work.
Okay. Yeah, I'll follow up with you after the meeting, that gets contact info.
What's the target audience on that? And I mean, are you looking at like Twin Cities promotions, that little slips here and there, or information centers, or what?
That is part of the ongoing discussion about where is most effective, but in combination, from, you know, bits and pieces of directive we received from the board here and from the planning that we did in November. Essentially, our focus is on trying to get people who are not on the East Range to the East Range. We use that Placer AI analysis to kind of identify, you know, at a glance anyway, what the major events are. And I'll actually talk about that discussion at the Discover the Range board a little bit later, but really, yes, whether it's in the cities or Duluth, and even, Hibbing, Grand Rapids, but trying to identify places where there are people who are traveling to the area or could travel to the area, to try to get them pulled in. And obviously, the bigger the pieces, the more expensive it is. And so there's discussion about the balance between having a simpler piece that highlights the signature events, which would probably be more effective for local people so that they know what all the events are. And to be honest, there's probably value in that as well, as, are the people from each of the communities aware of and attending each community's events? Are the people in White Lakes coming to Pumpkin Fest, for example? Those types of things, to make sure that they're aware of, what's even going on. I hope they are. I read the East Range Shopper. I don't know if other people do, but really outside of that, they may or may not have the information. And so, while I'd say the primary goal is trying to attract people from outside the area, there is also a mindfulness of people in the area and making sure that they just know what's going on, because there's some benefit to be had from that as well. So does that answer your?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there are a lot
Yeah.
of points where people get the urge to come up here and then
Right.
try to refine the idea or something. And by the way, Pete Hyduke, the mayor over in Hibbing, has a really good presentation on PBS's The Slice.
Okay.
Not about promoting tourism, but about reminding people of the good things of the range and importance and stuff. And it is The Slice, so it was probably 2 to 3 minutes. I thanked him. It's just a neat way to get to a different audience,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody watches PBS or it
Yeah.
hangs on to the end.
But to get to that particular audience.
If they get there,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And especially ones that-
mayor.
may or may not pay attention to the ATV or, other outdoors billboards or what have you. So in part of this conversation, and we don't have a firm number yet, but Discover the Range is willing to put money towards this, because this certainly is within their service area and within their purview, and so there is some amount of coordination on that. And obviously the kind of the more generalized to the area that Discover the Range covers, the more they're potentially willing to throw in. And so there's that balance of, we obviously, as the East Range Marketing Committee, want people to come to the East Range, not just the range, but they're, to them, it's the range. And so trying to consider, things like, would we include Redhead or some of the other like larger amenities in the surrounding area, to do, say, like a trifold brochure as opposed to a rack card, something like that, that then would include more than just the signature events, but more things about the standing amenities, like, the golfing or frisbee golf, trails, all the other things in addition to the signature events that just aren't going to fit on a single card. So if the board has any guidance or preference with that, if you're like, what, we think you should, make it as big and grand as you can to try to get people here and, get as much money out of Discover the Range as you can. Or if you're like, no, we just want to focus on the East Range, we don't want anything else, feel free to give guidance one way or another. Otherwise, we'll talk more about it today at our marketing meeting and, kind of haggle with Discover the Range to see what they're willing to contribute. So,
Yeah.
Now we're at any future point.
I don't know
feel free to-
what the rest of the board feels. I'd be more excited about targeting more of the East Range, because underlying it, I think what we're trying to do is encourage people to come here to both enjoy themselves, but to spend money and benefit the businesses, and instead of a broad shot,
Sure.
more targeted thing.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, because I mean, there are enough businesses, activities and entities that could be interesting to the people that are coming from the outside. I don't think we're trying to promote housing necessarily from anything like that, or permanent residency. Isn't it more visitor?
Yeah, it's focused on visitors. Although, the state has a lot of data to support, like, that is the gateway to getting somebody to live right where you are. Because I think it's something akin to like 44% of people are more likely to live somewhere they visited, or like essentially they've got a positive report once they visited Minnesota and they're like, I could live there. So it's a substantial increase.
So if they eat a Vi's pizza, it might just be the gateway.
They might, you know, they're like, hey, I really like that, I wanna live there. But really, I mean, when you think about it, like, people go where they're familiar and where they're comfortable, and so if people are familiar and comfortable after they visited, then they're more likely to live here. And that really, the state's approach through Explore Minnesota and what is now Explore Minnesota for Business, which has replaced the Minnesota Marketing Partnership, focusing on really branding Minnesota as a state to businesses outside the region. The reason why they decided to go that route is some of the information and studies that have been done showing that essentially, in order to get the business to move, you have to get the people to want to move, you know, people in leadership. And that tourism is one of the best gateways to do that. And so to a certain extent, they're looking at tourism as a mechanism for business recruitment as well as economic stimulus to the local economy. Related to the marketing committee and Discover the Range. So I'm on the Discover the Range board, representing the East Range and our interests here. At our last meeting, Northspan happened to do a workshop. Outside of that capacity, as Northspan and the other things that we do, working on their vision, values, and mission with them. And as we're talking about that and places for Discover the Range to focus their interests, we talked about our Placer AI results that we got through the marketing committee, which we ended up getting for free. We didn't have to pay anything for the results that we got. So win for us, saving some money. But that the curious thing was that the Nordic ski event at Mesabi East was identified as the biggest event for the East Range for the year in gathering or like bringing people from outside the area. And so really talking about like, you know, water carnival and those types of events are very important and are part of like what makes our community, but also like high school sports, like that really gets people here. And you know, when mom and dad are staying in a hotel for the weekend, you know, they spend some money too. But that Nordic ski invitational, by a margin, is the event that brings the most people to the East Range.
Sounds like a good target audience. I mean, you know.
Right. And
Putting
so,
things on the fields.
And in February, there's the archery meet at Mesabi East,
okay,
February 1st, and that
Okay.
brings in about 2,000 people. Just for that day. So yeah, high school sports can really
I was gonna say
bring
the
a big
state,
crowd.
the state ski meet at Giants Ridge, I mean, it brings people to, I mean, there's people that stay in Duluth to just to be closer to it, I mean, because everything fills up. from a,
Right.
You know, a radius there, so.
and I don't want to get too far off topic, but that's one of the constant struggles that Discover the Range is the conversation about the perception of us being at capacity, when in fact our hotels have space and people are going and staying in Duluth. Best we can tell, at least on the corporate level, some of that has to do with hotel brands and whether or not they've got points at certain ones. And so, you know, there's some discussion around like, do we have the right hotel brands on the range, or do we need to, you know, add some? But yes, certainly. And so that's also part of why we're thinking of targeting like Duluth and the cities is it is far more common than it should be that people who have business on the range are staying in Duluth and then just driving up. Which is, you know, its own set of things, but if we can get them information about the East Range and things that are going on here, all the better. So anyway, that continues to be of interest to Discover the Range and a conversation that's going on, and really an opportunity for collaboration and partnership. So I'll keep you informed as that develops, and you whatever ends up going on there. But we had talked previously about the possibility of something akin to an East Range Summit for the joint meeting between each of the municipalities. And Carl and I were going through the budget, and it looks like there's actually some money that could cover our time for organizing something like that. And so we may be able to get, you know, local sponsorships, I don't know, from like New Range or the like, to cover whatever the additional margin might be for something like that. So we potentially can proceed on that without having to spend any additional funds. So I think probably for our next meeting, we'll come up with an estimate of like what we think in terms of time and capacity that would take to make sure that everything's covered.
Was that just the respective public bodies or opening it up kind of a community summit?
Well, that is really where the conversation went, because we were talking about just bringing the municipalities together, which is where the directive is aimed, but that, like, how much do people in one community really know about what's going on in another community? And really doing what we can to try to get everybody on the same page so that people do know what's going on in the other communities, and really try to elevate those opportunities for collaboration. And we figure, you know, and as much as we can, getting everybody in the same room at once is kind of the way to do that. And so that's where the impetus for that came. So, but again, you know, we serve at the direction of the board. So if you have direction one way or another on that, feel free to give it. Otherwise, our plan will be to come up with an outline of what we think that would be and what we think it would cost for the next meeting. So I think probably the biggest thing, at least financially, was IRRR had a survey regarding the rural energy projects. Thank you so much, Becky, for submitting something. So there were only for the region, and this is a regional discussion that IRRR was bringing together. There were only 7 submissions. White Lakes was one of them. And so East Range was represented, and North Span was there. Carl and Alyssa were there kind of as co-facilitators or assistant facilitators to the people running the meeting. I was there capacity representing East Range. And it's a good thing that North Span was there, because if we hadn't been, we would not have had projects on the table. And this is potentially $50 million for our community for rural energy in all of its different fashions. So the conversation had essentially drifted to focusing exclusively on transmission lines and substations to increase the capacity. And to which I was kind of like, well, what, you know, I understand we need good transmission lines, and, you know, maybe other people know more about the state of our, you know, infrastructure than I do, but don't we need the capacity, especially given with Laskin going offline and with, you know, the entire transition as a state, we need a lot more capacity, got a lot more. And so, and part of that was, you know, in the broader scheme of energy, we do need that capacity, but that is also what keeps our proposal in play, so that on the East Range, we can potentially see that money. And so there ended up being consensus that essentially in the regional application, the joint focus was going to be on infrastructure and on production. The production being what would get us a solar array or something to that effect.
Yeah, I don't know what I got the impression just minutes, but the discussion was more how to increase the capacity.
Right.
From a selfish city mayor, I'm sitting there saying, I spend $16,000 a month on electrical things for the city of Aurora. you know, how can we chip away at that for once and
Right.
save the, you know, citizens some money instead of always going to them for more? You know, kind of thing.
Exactly, and really that increased capacity, if you don't have the production to meet the increased capacity, like what's the point? You know, if you've got a pipe this big and you've got this much water going through it.
Yeah, but I mean, like a solar farm feeds into the grid or can, right?
Yeah,
So as
Yes.
long as Minnesota Power doesn't oppose it, you know, for taking away some of their bread and butter, it seems to me, you know, if we have 16,000, I don't know what Wabbits or the other things, but I mean, it's a huge element on our budget or budget for the year and everything else. And if there's so many funds floating around there, Luke and.
well, and
talk with
especially
Luke.
if we can do it as a joint project.
Yeah,
where,
something
you
where
know,
we
it
can,
can
like a
potentially-
cooperative,
Exactly.
essentially, a cooperative thing, and then allocate out the benefits of it to the different communities.
Mhm.
You know, if we could knock 4,000 a month,
Mhm.
that would be huge.
But isn't Minnesota Power getting out of the production side of it? They're just gonna be in transmission. That's why they were selling out the production side of it to Canada. You know, they're getting out of it. They just going, that's what it said in one of their letters that they sent in Bill. They're selling off their Clay Boswell and those other places to a Canadian firm. And in turn, they're only gonna have all the transmission lines that are coming around. And in here and concentrating on that thing. And the other issue becomes is solar power plants. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about solar things and I don't know, I've never seen a study on what they pay back, but it's my understanding that there were, at one time, they were offering $60,000 to help put solar panels on your buildings and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it would take 106 years to pay back the money that it would take, you know, so it is not.
Well, Jeff did that presentation on the schools, very, very minor solar farm, and said it was returning a net of $8,000 per year into their
Yeah.
budget. And they didn't put any money into getting it installed.
Yeah, they got a grant. to
They
get
got a
it
grant.
installed.
So to that, and that is a good point, is the return on solar. So one, I want to say this could end up being a joint project with Ely and other cities, so not just the joint range, because they also wanted a collaborative solar array. And so depending upon what fleshes out in the conversation and bearing in mind that this is a regional application headed by the IRRR, I obviously will advocate for us as the East Range to get the collective solar array. But just want to acknowledge up front, it may involve other communities depending upon who else is at the table when.
Sounds like they'd be creating a whole new power company.
And I thought MP&L too was putting up a big solar thing over by Cohasset.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
So there
600 acres
are-
or something of land they're gonna make into a big solar farm
Yes.
and stuff, and you know, maybe that's the key, it has to be big enough, the smaller operations that are on, for us at the township, if you put it on the school out there,
Sure.
yeah, chances are you're not gonna get enough back out of it to make it worthwhile, you know?
So on the residential systems, the payback is usually about 20-25 years. This is obviously a commercial system. And I mean, ideally, we would get the 50 million from the federal government. And if there's anything else we can tag onto it, we'll certainly do that. I mean, one of the things North Span often tries to do, especially when you're going after grants, is don't make it one grant, make it 4 or 5 grants. So everybody's got a little different piece in there. And so, I mean, IRRR is helping to write this federal grant and to organize people regionally. But it would make a lot of sense if we get this, the IRRR would also throw in some money. And then we can also look at, okay, what else is available that potentially can add to this collaboration and add to it
Yeah,
financially.
that seems to get to the economic feasibility, is there's so many outside funding sources. I mean, like the
Sure.
water project, 85% of it's paid for by outside sources. If we could have a
Right.
solar installation that was 85% paid for, the
That'd be great.
payback time would
Right.
be a lot.
Right, that brings it way down. There is also looking at overall efficiency and what is actually going to save the most money. So there is photovoltaic solar, which is what most people think of as solar, and there's also passive solar, which is essentially just tubing with black fins. Because most of the money is going to pay for heating, right? And so if you can heat directly using passive solar, which has way longer longevity, like it doesn't wear out in the same amount of time, and is way lower, like operating, maintenance, like all the components, it's cheaper. It's frankly used quite a bit in Europe, because of those reasons. And so it's something for consideration in the design that, you know, maybe some of it could be photovoltaic, some of it could be passive solar, to offset some of those heating costs, which again would increase the efficiency and bring down the payoff time for something like that. Obviously the heating isn't going to be as useful in the summer, but they also potentially get hot enough that they can not through photovoltaics, but through, you know, spinning a turbine or whatever it might be, still generate electricity. And so even with the passive solar systems, you can essentially design it so that it still generates electricity when you're not using it for direct heat. And you know, that could be as simple as, okay, in summer it goes down this line and turns the turbine, and winter it goes this way, and you know, it's the industrial park or whatever it might be. But I mean, that's obviously part of a much larger conversation. We will definitely look to the board for feedback as we're participating in that. I mean, our main goal at this point is make sure we're on the radar, make sure we're, you know, part of the conversation that's going on, and that whatever form it takes, that a project on the East Range is still in play. So, and it is, so. With that, I just wanted to real quick highlight, so there are 2 days left for the Minnesota Community Ideas Grant Program, and anybody in the room, like this isn't just the board here. If you've got, and it's very broad and very open-ended, so I encourage you to go look at it. The Minnesota Community Ideas Grant Program. And part of the reason why we're encouraging everybody to apply is essentially all the applications go into a bucket. They pull out of the bucket, kind of like a lottery. And then if your application gets pulled, then you are in the select group that gets to apply. It is still highly competitive, even if you make it through the lottery to get to apply. But so many people apply that, you know, that's the way they do. And so just to increase our chances as a region in the lottery, Northspan has been actively trying to cultivate applications in the area. And so if anybody's got an idea, feel free to throw it out there. It just increases our chances as a region, and especially with the initial application. Like you don't have to have the whole application ready to go. You're just essentially making sure you've got enough information to get your name in the bucket so that you can apply later. So with that, I will wrap up Northspan's piece. Oh, and I guess you had Ellers under this. I just need to be.
Well, a couple meetings ago, maybe in November, we talked about investing money and potentially going through Aurora, and then Lou Kakela connected us with Ellers, who Doug, you guys use for your investing. And so I forwarded all the information from Ellers onto the board in Northspan last month, and then again sent it this month so we can decide, do we want to start investing? We've been talking about it for a while, so I just want to keep it on the table, and if we need to register with them and get it going, I can start doing that.
Well, I can only say from Aurora's standpoint, it's painless and profitable. Usually a good combination. And I kind of mind-boggling to see how many funds actually the board has there on their reports that we got, you know, 300 and some thousand. Not all of it can obviously be invested and so on, but.
No, I think, and I don't have my notebook from the previous meeting, but we did already agree on an amount of money that we could invest. I don't remember what it was now offhand, but we already agreed at a different meeting to a certain amount. So I mean, if we want to get started, I can, it says opening an account, I can do that first piece and get an account open at least, and
I don't have any financial interest in it, but I'd be glad to move that we take action to enlist the services of Ayers to try to use our money more profitably. And
I would second that.
It wasn't wasn't the rate on that came out in that email that you sent out, like 0.25%.
0.25, yeah.
So it is very reasonable to get in there to sell
Yeah, and maybe if he has, yeah, they list an example of 100,000, I don't remember what ours was, but, I can go ahead and open the account, I know it says we need a primary signature and a secondary, would that be just like who signs checks, the chair and the vice, or do we want, like, I mean, I could be one signer and the chair could be one signer. Just you guys would have to let me know who you want me to list as the primary and secondary signers.
So we need to decide whether to go with them, specifically how much and who, right? Those.
We already decided how much, I just don't know.
All right.
In front of me right now.
You already moved that, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, and then the motion was to go with Ayers, but I'm just trying to figure out, should that motion be expanded to designate the chair and vice chair as the signatories on the account and
I don't know if it has to be in the motion, but we do have to do it. We have to decide. I don't know if it really needs to be. I think we could just motion yes, let's go with Ellers, and then I can.
okay, then we've got that on
Open
the
the
table, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll second that.
Yeah.
So we have the motion in a second to invest with Ellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Before we get too far away from that, I don't know what Eller's position is, but I have dealt with banks where in order to add or change signers, you need a specific motion with signed minutes with the name of the person. So just so we don't have to circle back and do it again, I would suggest that we make another separate motion with the name of the chair and the vice chair, specifically adding them to the account.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, so that will be Ed and Steve. And it
So
looks
we
like
have-
a lot
we
of
have
it
to
is
vote on that
through,
one, I suppose,
through
yes.
DocuSign, so it's gonna be online stuff,
Even
so you
better.
guys will have to watch your emails
Okay.
for.
So then we do have the motion that the chair and the vice chair be the signers on this thing. Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And I assume that could be changed when we change leadership every year if we wanted to.
Yeah, I would assume, it's just like any other bank account, we could change, the names on it,
Next year it'd be Steven.
yeah.
Dave.
It's like every year I have to change at the bank, everything, so we
Yep.
could, do that as well.
All right, now I'm done.
You finished the water project, Doug.
All right, things are just moving ahead. We continue with we've continued meeting with Point Lakes to try and flush out the issues and try and get some sense of direction on that, and we're meeting each month. We have a meeting later this week.
Thursday.
Yeah, kind of. And let's see, the water appropriation permit for the project was finally granted. We got informed of that at the last meeting. The water intake facility on the north side of Lake Mine, they're pouring. Ironically, I guess this warm weather will make it possible, the first, what they call lift in the concentric rings that are part of the caisson that goes down deep into the ground to enable the water intake, and treatment plant footings are being poured also at the water treatment plant on that. And as far as I know, I haven't heard otherwise from Scenic Acres, they're enjoying their water.
Cause I know I haven't had any bad calls, only good ones.
So that project obviously is a multi-year project, but it's proceeding, hitting on all the cylinders, so.
The community projects, Doug, we're back on.
They are, but back on, okay, put on a new hat. All right, what's going on in Aurora? Well, first, I'm sad to miss the last meeting, it was Jim Wykeham's last meeting and everything else, but I had the influenza creeping crud. So, and welcome to the new mayors. You know, as a old veteran of the board, it's nice to see some new energies and talents coming in. So Aurora had a fire at Iron Gate, not in the main multi-story building, but in the townhouses behind it. It was an arson incident. And I think just amazing, the good response of the fire department, able to confine it to the unit and just smoke damage, I think, to the adjacent units. So no loss of life or injury, so that was good also. West Industrial Park project, pretty speaks for itself. The concrete exterior panels are rising up there, and the site development's kind of complete. The whole initial installation, 30,000 square foot building, is anticipated to be completed in August. And available at that time, and encouragingly, there are several businesses exploring the possibility of the 30,000 square feet. I know of 3 of them, but I had a lunch yesterday with the deputy commissioner at ERJPB, and he was saying that they're fielding several possibilities. So as opposed to sitting vacant, it looks like that could be a good addition, which would then have the ripple effect on the East Range of housing and spin off the sort of economic activity. So we're excited about that. Let's see, we're starting an alleyway project, which isn't that distinctive normally, but we're using the assessment process for the first time since the 2015 era or something in Scenic Acres development. And I don't know if the other communities are using assessments or not, but this one met with some pointed concerns from the, I think it's about half, or maybe it's a third of the project will be assessed out and the rest is from other funding sources. But and then let's see, we are going out for bids on a construction manager at risk project related to the wastewater mercury addressing problem. It's about a $12 to $15 million project, and that'll probably be the bids on that will be reviewed in February. We're advertising for improvement bids on the community center. There's about $600,000 of work that's going to be done there. We managed to successfully negotiate an extension contract with our city administrator, Luke, and we'll be keeping him. And we've gotten the 49ers satisfied on pension matters there. So that's pretty well underhand. So that's what's going on in Aurora. So.
Dave, Steve?
I don't have a whole lot, obviously, it's the first month in my new role, but we are currently accepting bids for phase 6 of our citywide reconstruction. That's gonna be a fairly large project with First and Fifth, First Street, Fifth Avenue. We met as a committee last night for our, exploring the option of a fire truck. As everybody probably knows, we're a lot of aging equipment around here, so and we've applied for a grant. It's a very I don't know if it's competitive is the right word. It might be a draw out of a hat type of thing, because there hasn't been too many awarded in this area over the last decade. I think there's been about 2 of them, but we're hopeful on that, and we just got that ball rolling.
Where do you get the grant from?
That's a FEMA grant. I think.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't it, Jeff? It was FEMA that we applied to. Yeah, it's nationwide too. I mean, it's not a very
Well, it still exists.
right. Yeah, it's so. Yeah. Other than that, we got a bunch of small things going on around town, but on that front, that's all I've got for today.
Those FEMA grants tend to be issued to large cities, the metro areas and stuff like that versus up here. And I know the township has applied for multi-years and never even got a good look at it. Nothing, so, the last one I think that got one is
Mackinnon.
Mackinnon Fire Department. They got a grant from FEMA on a vehicle, and plus the trucks now are going for $500,000 or more to buy a new fire truck.
I wish, if it was $500,000, we wouldn't even be having a meeting about it, so. A simple pumper is $1.2 million right now.
Really?
But the
So,
township was
I
lucky,
mean,
he did get one, in 2023 for equipment, not for vehicles, but for the
Yeah.
Right.
equipment portion, we got $100,000,
Yeah.
which was tremendous.
Yeah, we've got a few equipment awards.
Yeah, we've had- But you get into that vehicle and it's just, it's a whole new ball of wax. And
And the sad part about it is they got a 25-year life on them. They claim. And let's be serious about
vehicles?
this. You look at the runtime on them and stuff like that. It's under 10,000 miles. It's under 1,000 hours of runtime. And then they tell you it's not good enough. You need a new one, and that. But I think Aurora refurbish theirs?
Yeah.
And so that becomes the option, the next option, rather than spending $1 million
That's what we thought.
to, you have it refurbished, so it's brought back up and it'll rerun for 25 years or more.
see, ours is still an open cab,
So,
which was outlawed in 1991. Open cab fire truck is our #1 pumper, so that's kind of the other.
So when you
There's
say-
no refurbing the,
When you say open cab, is there just like a windshield or?
it's a winch, but the back is open to the elements.
Okay.
The back seats are, so.
Hmm.
No.
Good for parades, but not great for.
Yeah.
Right, right. So that's our biggest thing on like I said, the citywide reconstruction is our biggest point right now, so.
it's, Dave,
We recently, this for the City of White Lakes, yesterday, we filled our vacant counselor seat. We have a new counselor coming on. I believe his passing his background check.
He does not have to do a background
He
check.
doesn't have to do
He
one
does
now.
have to get sworn in and do an onboarding process.
Okay,
He said he'd be able to do that next week.
all right. We had Short Elliott Hendrickson last night, come in and explain a change order for the new mechanical building at the arena. We accepted our librarian's retirement letter. She will be leaving soon. Planning Commission has made some recommendations, to allow a daycare center, a new one in town. And, we also approved the purchase of a new loader for our Public Works Department. Did I miss anything?
The only other thing I have is I don't think that this board knows, but my last day with the city will be February 7th. So if you need anything prior to then, please let me know.
Where are you going to?
The state.
I think the board, we gotta commend Becky for all the contributions she made over the years here. She often would stand in for White Lakes and good luck.
Thanks.
I didn't want to take your wind out of your sails.
oh, that's fine, you're doing a good job.
Okay.
Always have. So, in the township, of course, we have Liscana coming up this weekend. And we spent a lot of time and effort hauling snow from the city of Aurora. And around the piles in the township for set it up for the slides. And then we got pounded with some snow afterwards, which it was clean snow. Didn't have the sand and stuff in it that we put on it, but and looking at the weather, I'm supposed to be relatively nice. So I'm anticipating they'll have an excellent crowd out there this year compared, like last year, they had a very good crowd, very large crowd out there. And it'll be a very successful event, and that's our big event. Our office staff has been overwhelmed with this year's, going through the end of the year books because we have the audit coming up. And trying to get everything else done and then all of a sudden the grant applications come in for recreation. You can apply for grants for recreation in January again, they start. So that's taken up a bunch of time and we're going to try to schedule a meeting with the trail, or the bike trail. The bike trail, sent us a proposal where they wanna go around the south end of the mine dumps up at, Red Top with their bike trail and not go over the top of the hill by the gun club. And, it's been, thought process is that maybe this is a chance to expand it bigger like they did around St. James Pit out here. Where they made the trail for both of them could run around the bottom down there and get the ATVs off the top of the hill and the gun range, because unfortunately, it's not so much, I think, the local people or the visitors driving those $20,000 or $30,000 side by sides, but it's the other ones that are up there ripping up things that, you know, doing damage that causes us grief, but hopefully we'll have a meeting with them before it gets going, because it's supposed to go in, is that 26, Jody? That trail? It's in 26,
Yeah.
the trail is supposed to go, so we'd like to have a meeting with them, and that, you know, ATV trails take a lot less work than a paved trail for a bicycle to go around. And they sent us the maps and everything. So
this would
work
be
on that.
just a ATV trail, or this would be ATV and hike?
It would be, yeah, we'd like to split it between ATV and the bikes.
Okay.
You know, kind of like they did with, by Gilbert there, you know. Something on that same option, right, to keep the ATVs off the bike side and keep the bikes off the ATV side. You know, but somehow we gotta figure it out, well, let's get in. But, you know, and different things are going on, you know, we've been getting hit with, road plowing almost daily. You know, it's amazing how 2 inches of snow can create such slippery roads. You know, but we're, and when you got lots of roads to plow, it pretty much heats up a long time, and then it usually does not snow around here until Saturday or Sunday. You know, so, and that's when.
Isn't that the truth?
Then you have to come out and do it. Other than that, hopefully this, Leskian is gonna be a huge success this year. You know, I know Jody was attending some of the meetings. And, you know, they have a different crew in there, a lot of the older people that were doing it. Have been kind of stepped aside, and the younger ones are taking over the projects. Other than that, we don't have anything to do, I would say. So, other business, we have the liability with coverage waiver motion. Not to waive statutory limits.
Like every year, the League of Minnesota Cities liability coverage, we opt not to waive the limits so that we're not paying out $2 million or more for an occurrence. So we're staying within the limits, so we'll need a motion to.
So
send that.
moved and authorize the administrative assistant to sign the form and include it.
I'll second that.
The motion and a second, not to change the limits. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next meeting will be Tuesday.
Before we end that, I have two quick things. One, I want to ask Dave a couple follow-up questions about the daycare. So do you have someone actively seeking to put?
She's putting a daycare center in her home,
It's a home
Interhome.
daycare.
home business, yeah.
Do you know what the capacity of that will be?
She's working through her permits now. Her license.
In the process.
Usually licensing starts at 10,
Sure.
can go 10 to 12 for home daycare, depending on ages. And that's if she wants to do max. I think 10 is still the standard max.
The one other thing that I forgot to do during the North Span section, we were looking to add Kurt formally to the housing committee. He's a regular MD and interested in being a part of the committee officially. So if we could have a motion to add him to the housing committee.
I understood that right, you want a motion from us to.
Yes. Oh, I can't make the motion.
And people to the hiring.
To add Kurt to the housing.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll support it.
So we got a motion and support for that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Someone make a motion to adjourn, sorry.
Oh, so moved.
I didn't write anyone down yet.